Hey everyone, Matt here from Doctor Running, and today we're going to do a comparison review of the On Cloudmonster 2 and the On Cloudeclipse. So the reason for this comparison review is that these shoes on paper are actually quite similar in terms of both having Helion foams, both having somewhat similar stack heights and certainly similar weights. My hope with this is to help you kind of figure out which one might work better for you if you're even interested in these shoes at all. So both shoes we have separate reviews on, but let's compare them and see how things go. So spec-wise first, in my size 10, the On Cloudmonster 2 is coming in at 304 grams or about 10.7 ounces. The On Cloudeclipse is coming in at 298 grams or about 10.5 ounces. The stack height for the On Cloudmonster 2 is 36 in the heel, 29 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. The On Cloudeclipse is coming in a little bit higher at 40mm in the heel, 35 in the forefoot for a 5mm drop. So outside of that, in terms of function, this is where these two really start to separate. So the On Cloudmonster 2, in my mind, is kind of more like your normal daily training shoe. It's kind of in that mid-weight range. It's like in Classic On, slightly firmer, but it's a little bit more responsive, meaning it can do easy paces, but it can also go into a little bit faster paces. The On Cloudeclipse is a very different shoe in that, yes, there's more foam underfoot, but it feels much more comfortable going at easy paces. The rocker is much more noticeable in the On Cloudeclipse. It also responds much better at slower paces. Trying to pick up the pace, this thing's just a little bit large, and the foam does, and the setup doesn't respond the same way, so faster paces don't feel as good. But easy runs, walking, slow recovery jogs feel really good on the Cloudeclipse, because I think that's the angle that you're going to compress both the Cloud Tech as well as get that rocker to really go. The On Cloudmonster, again, is going to be different, where the Cloud setup and the way the shoe is, it's not nearly as rockered, but it's a little bit more snappy. It tends to bounce a little bit more. There's just a teeny bit more flexibility to the sole. So if you want to move a little bit quicker and do daily paces, the On Cloudmonster 2 is going to be a little bit better. Now, ironically, despite this being the faster shoe, it is actually the one to me that feels a little bit more stable. So midfoot and the way that things are designed, again, I know the On Cloudmonster, the On Cloudeclipse, I'm sorry, it technically has what looks like a little bit more width, but the way the sole is set up, the On Cloudmonster 2 just works a little bit better. So the sidewalls are a little bit better in the On Cloudmonster 2, and it just, the way the snappy just tends to push you forward fairly quickly. The On Cloudeclipse, again, because there's so much cut out of the midfoot, when I run in this shoe and if I collapse at all medially, I don't really have a lot. So yes, there is a sidewall here, but I just feel like this shoe doesn't have the same medial guidance that the On Cloudmonster 2 does. If you need lateral, it's totally fine because of the curved setup, and there is a fairly decent lateral sidewall. But for stability needs or some guidance, the On Cloudmonster 2 is going to be a little better, but neither of them are true stability shoes, to be honest with you. The major difference here is where we start getting into the upper. So both of them have actually really comfortable fits. The On Cloudeclipse has the more comfortable fit because the upper is a little bit lighter. It's definitely more breathable, and there's quite a bit more stretch to it. The Cloudmonster 2 has a lot of volume. That's something that we noticed in our review and the video review. There's just a lot more room in this shoe, and that's good for certain people that have higher volume feet. The only challenge is that when I tried to lock the laces down, the tongue is really thin in the On Cloudmonster 2. In the On Cloudeclipse, the tongue is thin, but it is still padded, so I can tighten down the laces, and it didn't bother the top of my foot. The On Cloudmonster 2 did. So if you need more volume, the On Cloudmonster 2 is probably going to be the best option. If you need normal to just a little bit wider, the On Cloudeclipse is probably going to be your best bet, just because you can see the forefoot is a little bit wider in the Cloudmonster 2, but the forefoot stretches a little bit more with being a normal fit in the On Cloudeclipse. So that's kind of the big difference there. Heel counters and the heel fit fairly similar, and but there is a little bit more flexibility in the On Cloudeclipse. So if you're a little sensitive to counters, this may be a better option, but they're fairly similar. And Isabella also thinks so too as she's falling asleep. But those are really the big differences between these shoes. I like there's a little bit more versatility and speed with the On Cloudmonster 2, but there's a little bit more comfort with the On Cloudeclipse. Again, hope that helps your decision with these two shoes. There are some similarities, but also some differences. And if you're interested, hopefully this video helps you figure out which one might work better for you.